Hi, this is Richard Robbins with My 60K Store. I'm going to teach you how to find suppliers whose products you can sell. If we take a look at today's supply chain compared to what it used to be in the past, we'll see that there's now actually a lot more overlap between manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. In the past, manufacturers would just sell to distributors who had relationships with retailers that they would sell to, and then the retailers would do whatever they need to present the product to the consumer. But the ability to sell and to reach consumers directly through the internet has really made it to where there's some overlap between the functions of all these different parts of the supply chain. Each one of them nowadays has access in one way or another to the consumer, and so there's an interesting mashup of people who make products, people who warehouse and distribute products, and then the retailers who take those products and get them to the end market. A couple of examples that I have, one of them was one of my suppliers is a medical products master distributor, and they had about 10,000 products in their inventory, and there were several hundred of those, maybe even 1,000, that were their own brand, that the pricing I got on those was actually a lot more competitive because it was the actual manufacturer's products, and I could mark those up more when I sold those. I had another one that was a sporting goods distributor that had their own products as well, and combine those with thousands of other products from other manufacturers. So the products that I got from them that were their own brand, I got more of a markup on. I was able to mark them up more and sell them to the consumer. Looking at this relationship, typically if you have a manufacturer or distributor that's selling products to consumers, most of the time, because they respect the relationships they have with retailers, they will sell those products to consumers at what's called the manufacturer suggested retail price, or the highest price that that product would go for. And what that does is that actually allows the retailer to discount those products in their marketing efforts so that they can actually win the sale from consumers instead of having to compete with the manufacturers and distributors on price in those situations. One example that I think demonstrates how fluid this relationship is between the manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, and also the consumers because of the internet. When I was running my sporting goods store several years ago, I had a product that I was selling that was called the Slam Man Punching Dummy, and I got that product from one of my suppliers. It was a distributor that actually only sold to retailers who had a business license with a federal tax ID, everything that I had to fill out and set up the account with them. And I had consumers that were coming to me because I ranked well for this particular item and also for related terms. So I was at the top of Google for things related to electronic punching dummy or slam man dummy, those types of things. And so I was fulfilling those with my distributor that I had, that I was getting enough of a discount from retail that it made it worth selling it to consumers. At some point, that distributor quit carrying that product, but I still had people that were coming to my store and ordering it from me before I even had a chance to take it offline. I found out that my distributor had discontinued it. I had orders for this product that I was not able to fulfill to my consumers. Well, instead of having to go and dig around and look for another distributor because I had so much else going on, I was really busy, I just did a quick Google search and I went and I found that product from another retailer that didn't even require a business account to be set up, but I found it at a big enough discount, and they had a shipping policy that it was really cheap for shipping, and so I was able to then go and fulfill these orders. Instead of from this previous arrangement, I actually was able to go and get it now from this retailer, and I still was able to mark it up to my customers and make about $100 per order, especially because the shipping from this retailer, from whatever reason, they had a discount from whoever their shipper was, and it made it to where I could still continue to make a margin. So you can see that there's a lot of different arrangements that you'll find here where you're dealing maybe directly with the manufacturer, sometimes with distributors, and on occasion you may deal with another retailer. So how exactly does your store add value to both your distributors and to your customers? I'll explain that to you the way that I have seen the relationships unfold. First of all, your store is going to add value to distributors because you're going to connect them with people who want to buy their products. You'll find that distributors actually don't want to deal with one-off customers who come and buy one thing and they never see them again. They would much rather deal with an organization like yours, a business that they're doing repeat orders with, Your store adds value to your consumers, to shoppers on the internet in general, by connecting them with the products they want, educating them on the features of the product. Sometimes even you'll be educating them better than what the distributors are willing to do or the manufacturers are willing to do. And you'll be fulfilling their orders and meeting their expectations and helping them to have a positive online shopping experience and to get the products that they want. So you're connecting the distributors to people who want their product and helping them turn over inventory, and you're connecting the shoppers, your consumers, to the products that your distributors have. You're meeting their expectations in terms of delivery timelines. You're the one that they'll deal with returns, other issues that they may have as they complete their shopping experience. When you're setting up these relationships with your suppliers, what exactly is it that you're after? There's three main components of that relationship that I'd like to just discuss with you real quick. First of all, what you need from your supplier to begin the relationship is a wholesale product list, which is a list of hundreds, potentially thousands of different products that include such pieces of information as like your wholesale price, what it's going to cost you for each item, your suggested retail price for each item. The manufacturer typically has what they call a list price or suggested retail price for it. The product names, the product descriptions, product images, and all of the other description and information about the product that you can use. These items that are in this product list are going to be the basis for the content that you'll create as product pages. Second thing you are after with a relationship with a supplier, obviously, is their inventory. You want to be able to have a supplier sitting there with a bunch of inventory that they are ready to ship at any notice from you once you get an order from a customer. And then the third thing, obviously, is the shipping element of that relationship, where they take the stuff, the inventory off their shelf, and they're willing to ship it through UPS or FedEx or sometimes through freight or whatever arrangements you might have. The next topic we want to deal with involves finding suppliers. How do you find where these suppliers are so that you can go and set up accounts with them? There's a few different ways that I use to find suppliers. The first one is to look for industry associations. So I will go and do a search for something like a product niche, so like, for instance, Toy Manufacturers Association or Consumer Electronics Manufacturers Association. Each of these searches in here will turn up different industry associations that will allow you to get a feel for who the distributors are, who the manufacturers are, and should lead you to the ability to set up an account with any of these. I'll just do a quick example of one for you. So if we look for instance, Consumer Electronics Industry Associations, you can see the top result that is returned here is this ce.org. And if we look under the membership list here, you can see membership directory from that link, and you can see it has member companies. There's a big assortment of different companies here that make consumer electronics. One thing about these industry associations and organizations is that it gives you really good access to the industry and its suppliers. Here's one that's the Advertising Specialty Institute. This is one that is, they are heavy on promotional products, advertising products. And you can see here from this page, under research, they have the top 25 apparel suppliers. And so they've got a list of people here then that I can go check out and see if I want to set up an account with them to sell their stuff. So that's a really handy resource from, again, an industry association or manufacturers association. Sometimes they refer to them as marketing associations, manufacturers associations, all of those types of searches. If you do those and look at the people that are kind of organizing the industry, then it'll give you a lot of information that you can use to go set up accounts with suppliers. Another strategy that I use is I'll go and search by the brand. So if there's a product niche that I found, I'll go and look and see who are the ones that are leading out, the best brands, the most popular brands in that industry. And oftentimes I'll do it by, the way that I'll find the best brands is I'll just go search, a general search for that product niche. So for instance, I'm looking for, say, for horse tack. If I just go search for horse saddles, then I can go and find out who are the people selling horse saddles that, if I don't know much about it, I can learn about it pretty quickly. So here I'm looking for, Chick's Discount Saddlery. Oftentimes they'll actually have a brand search up here. It looks like they don't on this particular page. But if I go and look at Western saddles, show and reining saddles, if I click on this, I can see that looks like the brand here, the manufacturer, appears to be this Showman. So I go and I look then for Showman Tack, and find out something about the manufacturer. If I can find there we go, the manufacturer, here it is, the manufacturer and exporter of saddles. And it looks like they're an international company, but I can contact them and I can find out who it is that they use as their distributors, and then I can set up an account with the distributor, or if they do it themselves, I can just set up an account directly with them. And that is the process that I use then if I'm going after a brand search. One thing that I have found is that when you become successful with these, with selling some of these lines, then it breeds more success. And what ends up happening is you have a lot more products become available to you than you can even add to your website unless you hire a team of people to keep up with all the different suppliers who want you to sell their stuff. Once you start getting an internet presence, other people want to kind of get in on what you've set up, and they want to get in on the traffic that you're generating. One example that I have of this, I was in the sporting goods industry back in the day. I had an account with a distributor that sold Allison athletic jerseys, and I only had access to a couple of them because those are the only ones that this distributor carried in their inventory. And I noticed that Allison had some other really nice jerseys that I want to make available, and so I contacted them, and they said, well, you have to have a storefront, you need to have inventory, you need to have all this stuff. And I actually I contacted them several times. On the third time, I asked them, I said, can you go real quick and just Google basketball uniform? And they went and Googled it. My website was in the top 3, and they clicked through to my site, and they could see that all their competitors were listed in the basketball uniforms that I was selling, but they were not. And I was able to ask them, do you want a part of this? I'm getting a lot of traffic coming to my site of people searching for basketball uniforms, and they're only buying your competitor stuff, they're not buying your stuff. And so I was able to set up an account with them by showing them that I had something to offer to them. If you're being rejected by suppliers, then it may be that you need to shelf that supplier until you can come back later and show them that there is a reason for them to set up an account with you so you can sell their stuff to your market, which, if you're getting several hundred visits to your site each day, then that's a viable market and you have value that you can add to that supplier. In those cases, typically what happens is they come back to you and say, please, will you sell our stuff? If you get a bunch of traffic to your site, then of course you can use that to leverage setting up accounts with suppliers. Another way that I find suppliers is I'll go to Google and I will look for different patterns that are used on supplier websites. Many of these suppliers use the same type of software to manage their inventory and to manage the way that they interact with their distributors, with their retailers. And so if you put in something like, for instance, off-roading equipment, dealer login, or children's toys, become a dealer, those types of things, then you will find many of these that show up, and you can search for them and read through their policies and what they expect of their retailers and set up accounts with them. That's been a really great method I've found. I'll show you that one real quick. If I go and look for children's toys, for instance, children's toys, and I look for dealer login, I put it in quotes because that tells Google that I only want to see pages that have that specific phrase. So now I look under, children's toys, dealer login, turns up this Berg USA, and you can see here on the top they have dealer login. Typically on their dealer login page it'll have something in here that says if you're not a reseller yet, then contact the company to figure out how to become a dealer. And that goes through the whole process. They explain the process of how to set up an account with them. These patterns are what most distributors use to advertise that they're willing to set up accounts with companies like yours. I've also had some success with searching for dropship companies, because some of them actually do refer to themselves that way. Some people have actually gathered together a list too that are not necessarily people that consider themselves dropshippers, but the person that gathered the list together does consider them to be dropshippers, and those are handy. So if I go back and Google dropship list, then I can see top 25 lists of dropship suppliers, dropship lists, and wholesale distributor info. So if I click on this, I see althealthcare.com, wholesale and dropship they have listed on theirs. So that one, yeah, you may have to search through a few of these. That one doesn't look like the most promising one to me just right off. So here's one that I found through that search, cutting edge products, that they sell security types of products. And let's see if we have, looks like they actually do sell to the end customers, but then they have dealer accounts here that I'm assuming if you were to go set up an account with them, you would get discounts on their products. So, and here they require, again, the state sales tax number and the federal tax ID number. So you have to actually prove to them that you are a business for them to give you a dealer account and that wholesale pricing. And that was through doing a search for a dropship list and doing a little bit of research that way. I've had people ask me, what are attributes of good suppliers? And so I'd like to go over a list of a few things that I think identify good suppliers. You will want to find out up front really whether this is a supplier you want to work with or not. Oftentimes in their policies and things like that, you can look through them and see if this is someone you want to do business with. A phone call to an account rep to find out something about the company will often reveal a lot of these things as well. But here's some points I'd like to make. First of all, a lot of these suppliers that are the best suppliers or would be the best suppliers don't necessarily refer to themselves as drop shippers. They are companies that make good products that are looking for a way to distribute them. Many of them haven't necessarily looked at the internet as their ultimate fulfillment channel. And so they're not even, many of them are not even familiar with the term drop shippers. The businesses that will give you a wholesale price on their products and allow there to be a margin there typically require a dealer application and a business account. If you're working with a supplier that doesn't really require that, then oftentimes what I've found is that the market is pretty saturated with fly-by-nights and people that just are out there trying to sell the stuff on eBay, and there's not a whole lot of margin in the products that they are selling, that they're warehousing. Also, typically they'll have low or no dropship fees. I know that there are some that have dropship fees just because they don't like to deal with the overhead of adding a new ship to address. They'd rather just ship to a retailer all the products all the time to the same address. But there's others who've understood, the internet provides a good opportunity and they want to be a partner with you. They want to make it easy for you to sell, and so they won't have dropship fees that make it to where you're selling a $20 product and there's a $10 dropship fee, which doesn't help at all, obviously. The best suppliers I've found are willing to work with your sales method, and they're flexible. Some of them I've actually had to teach. For instance, I have one that I wanted to have ship things overseas, and DHL was the cheapest for me. It made sense for me to use DHL to ship internationally, and they hadn't actually done that before, but I was able to teach them that by sending over a DHL label and scheduling a DHL pickup, they would integrate that into their shipping process, and they were willing to work with me on that. Others, you'll find out they're very rigid, and they say, nope, this is our process, and if you go outside of that, then tough luck for you. Those are not the best suppliers to work with, obviously. You'd like to find suppliers that have lots of inventory and even multiple warehouses. It's really convenient. I have one supplier that has about 5 warehouses all throughout the United States. So any location in the United States is within 1 or 2 days of ground ship away from one of their warehouses. And that makes it so that your customers get the product really quickly. If someone needs to have it overnighted, it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to ship it from New York to California. And that I found to be very convenient. Also, a lot of these suppliers that are the best suppliers, they have quick turnaround times on their fulfillment. And some of them, you'll go and ask, well, what are the shipping cutoffs? If they have a same-day shipping cutoff, that's a good sign, because it means that they are willing to, if you get an order into them by noon, they're willing to ship that the same day. Or if you get, some of them will allow you to get it in as late as, say, 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time, and they can still ship it out that same day. This is a pretty good core list of attributes that you want to look for in your suppliers.